Shout out to G-Man Boxing.
Alright, people. So, this weekend, we have a big fight. Arguably, you could say it's one of the biggest fights of the year, if not the biggest. It's a fight that I'm looking forward to, but believe me, it has been hard to... It's been hard to make a prediction. This is the type of fight where any result wouldn't be a surprise. And if you think about it like this, there are scenarios I can see in which Anthony Joshua wins via a one-punch knockout. Wouldn't surprise me. Do I think it'll happen? No, but it wouldn't shock me. Likewise, I could see Oleksandr Usyk getting to Anthony Joshua early, really hurting him, really putting him, in his place early, and then potentially getting a stoppage. Wouldn't surprise me. I could see Anthony Joshua winning this fight via a very controversial decision. Likewise, we could see Oleksandr Usyk winning a wide decision. There's a lot of things that can happen, but I'm going to talk about both guys' strengths. I'm going to go over what I think is going to happen in this fight. I'm going to give my prediction on this fight. Now, before we get into this, we'll talk about both guys. Anthony Joshua comes into this fight the two-time unified heavyweight champion of the world. He obviously lost that title in June of 2019 to Andy Ruiz, won it straight back. He's made one defense since then. That was last December against Kubrat Pulev. Oleksandr Usyk comes into this fight undefeated. He was the undisputed champion of cruiserweight. Pretty much did everything he could have done in that division. He beat the top guys at the time. Undisputed cruiserweight champion. Defended that title against Tony Bellew as well, just for good measure. And also won the Muhammad Ali Trophy in the World Boxing Super Series. At heavyweight, he is 2-0 with 2 knockouts. His debut was against Chez Witherspoon. Chez Witherspoon was not a world level heavyweight by no stretch of the imagination. His opponent was cancelled twice. It was Tyrone Spong and Carlos Takam. Neither of them fights happened, so we're stuck with Chez Witherspoon. Since then, he went on to fight Derek Chisora. Very different style to Anthony Joshua, but as far as I'm concerned, apart from Tyson Fury, Vitaly Klitschko, and David Haye, no one else has handled Derek Chisora as easy as Oleksandr Usyk. And look at the trouble Joseph Parker had, and compare that to Oleksandr Usyk. It's night and day. Night and day. So both guys come from, have an Olympic background. Anthony Joshua won gold in London 2012. Oleksandr Usyk also won gold in London 2012. He won it in the heavyweight division respectively. Anthony Joshua in the super heavyweight division, which is essentially heavyweight and cruiserweight if you were to talk about it in the pro game. As a professional, Oleksandr Usyk, he went through the ranks quick. I mean, he was world champion in his 10th fight. He was 9-0 with 9 knockouts when he went over to Poland, of all places, and fought Glowacki. Krzysztof Glowacki. And that was a prime Glowacki he fought. Alright, we have the vision of him being knocked out by Myris Briedis, him being knocked out by a collie. This was him at the peak of his powers when he fought Oleksandr Usyk. And Oleksandr Usyk went in there and he put on a clinic. He put on an absolute boxing clinic over there. It was one of his best performances, I think. He's gone on to fight guys like Tibisa Machunu. He's seeing very different styles. Different style is Tibisa Machunu to Krzysztof Glowacki. He's beating guys, beating big punchers, like Morak Kasiev. Has beaten very skilled technical fighters who can pop as well, like Myris Briedis. Beating guys like Tony Bellew, who, Bellew can punch. At heavyweight, it's a different story. Anthony Joshua, it's a different story. However, Oleksandr Usyk, having had such an extensive amateur background, you do wonder, is there anything Anthony Joshua can do that he's not already seeing? Whereas you go on the contrast, you look at Anthony Joshua, how do you prepare for someone like Oleksandr Usyk? His style, his attributes. When's the last time he's fought a southpaw who can move? Yes, he's fought southpaws like Charles Martin as Anthony Joshua, but when's the last time he fought one who can move? You would say, arguably, the last time he fought, and I forget, Savon's not a southpaw, is he? I think he is, actually. But you would say the last person he fought who could really move was Erislandy Savon, and that was in London 2012. I myself felt that Anthony Joshua lost that fight. I know it was only over 3 rounds, but I felt he lost it. Many others feel as though he lost that fight as well. He's not fought anyone remotely like Oleksandr Usyk in the pros, and saying that there is so many heavyweights like Oleksandr Usyk to fight anyway. This is going to be a very interesting fight. The weigh-in hasn't taken place, won't take place till tomorrow. As it stands, Oleksandr Usyk, his career heaviest is 217. We expect him to be over that. By how much it depends. I really do hope we're not in a situation where he's in the 230s. I think that would be very much a mistake. I think he needs to be, if he is heavier than he was last time out, no more than, we'll say, 223, 224. I think that Oleksandr Usyk's strengths are his mobility, his work rate, and his stamina. And I think that if you put on muscle too quick, and you put on a bit too much, it can negate some of them strengths. They might still be there, and there might still be advantages, but they won't be as prevalent as it would be if you'd come in lighter. Now, people have been talking about Anthony Joshua a lot, that, at one stage, I think in March of this year, he looked quite big, not fat, but just, stocky. Whereas now people are saying he looks a lot slimmer. I suspect Anthony Joshua will come in the low to mid 240s. I think gone are the days of him coming in the 250s. If he came in the 250s, if AJ stood in the scales tomorrow and he was 250, what was he, 3 against Takam, I'd make another video and I'd say Usyk to win by stoppage. I would, honestly, I would. If he did that, I'd make another video then there. I'd say AJ's not going to win this fight, because that is a very bad weight for him. I think he's sluggish. I think he's slower. His stamina is never great at the best of times, and I think that if he comes in that heavy, it won't be good at all. I think he needs to be as light on his feet and as nimble as he can be against Oleksandr Usyk, and coming in lighter will help him. I'm going to get into this fight. I'm going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of both guys. Anthony Joshua, alright, working more so under Angel Fernandez, and bear in mind, McCracken has been away with the Olympics, so AJ primarily in this camp would have been working with Fernandez a lot. I like the style. I like the changes he's implemented. I like AJ boxing with the left hand down a bit. Why do I like that? Because it does make your opponent think more. It offsets the opponent, because they're looking constantly at the hand down there whilst looking at your right hand, and you can lead with left hooks with the left hand down low, which is good for AJ. He's definitely not engaging with his opponents as much as he used to, unless he really feels that they're there for the taking, as we saw against Kubrat Pulev. He's staying on the outside. His jab is very good. So overall, AJ, I think that his strengths are very good jab. His movement when he gets on, on his toes is quite good. In this fight, Usyk has a tendency. He's always had a tendency to put, the hands up, the arms up, and come in forward. Right, just move forward, with a bit of movement, but he's always had his hands up. Now, when you're an orthodox fighter and you've a southpaw coming in with, as Teddy outside the earmuffs on, an uppercut from the orthodox stance will be very effective. And one thing I've said about AJ for a very long time is that his uppercut is tremendous. It really is underrated. Anthony Joshua's uppercut, in my opinion, is tremendous. Now, Oleksandr Usyk is going to want to be wary of that. And if you're AJ, you're going to be looking to get that uppercut off on Oleksandr Usyk. If you have a southpaw coming in, with a high guard, it's a very, very key weapon to have in your arsenal. A very strong, powerful, quick uppercut, because it is quite quick as well. Have a look at it. It is actually quite quick. So I would be saying to AJ, if you can just get him to come in, and if you could walk him onto an uppercut, you could be having a very, very easy night. If you're Oleksandr Usyk, you're going to want to try and negate that. You're going to want to try and use your movement. Not excessive, but you're going to want to give him feints. You're going to want to give him angles. You're going to want to see, if I sell him the dummy, what does he do? Because AJ, I think, will bite a lot of the feints. I think he'll be buying a lot of Oleksandr Usyk's feints. And I think that mentally Oleksandr Usyk may actually be able to tire AJ out. Because if AJ is constantly having to play a thinking game, he's constantly buying feints, he's constantly wondering what his opponent is doing, don't underestimate the mental side of boxing and how seeing that can actually affect you. We see it with Vasily Lomachenko. How he mentally would fatigue, not all of his opponents, but a lot of them. We've seen it with guys like Nicholas Walters. We've seen it with Rigondeaux, where mentally you could tell that they were just like, I can't keep up with this guy. And I wonder if something like that is going to happen with Anthony Joshua. Anatoly Lomachenko is in Oleksandr Usyk's corner, and he only really brings him in when he feels he needs it. So having him in the corner, again, will we see Oleksandr Usyk employ a lot of feints, a lot of movements, as well as bring pressure on Anthony Joshua? Anthony Joshua, when he is put under pressure, we do see him look a bit uncomfy at times. Now, people would say, but Andy Ruiz is a pressure fighter, and look in the rematch, he never came close to Anthony Joshua. Well, that was because he was overweight, and he really didn't try as hard as he could have. I think that Oleksandr Usyk, if he does apply pressure on Anthony Joshua, and he is letting the left hand go, bear in mind, Joshua's right hand, I think, is slightly better than Usyk's left, but Usyk's left hand is still very fast, very accurate. Might not have as much power behind it, but it's going to be very accurate. That's what Anthony Joshua's going to need to be wary of. That's what I'd be telling Alexander Usyk to do. Look and try and counter with the left hand. Sell him some feints. See what he's going to do. Try and figure out the angles. Try and figure out AJ from the feints. And use a little bit of movement to offset him. one thing people need to remember is AJ's body is something that Dylan White has success with, was when he went to AJ's body. So Oleksandr Usyk, invest in the body. Invest in AJ's body. Make him feel uncomfy in there. If you can make AJ feel mentally tired, uncomfy, and make him work when he doesn't want to work, you're going to have a very, very good time late on. Oleksandr Usyk's best rounds tend to be between rounds 6 to 9. Normally, that's when Oleksandr Usyk is warmed into a fight. He's got the angles, and he starts to really come into his own. Normally, exceptions always, but normally, they're AJ's weakest rounds. It's normally when he's exerted himself a little bit too much early on. He just takes his foot off the gas, and he lets them rounds to fly by. He's not going to want to do it against Usyk. Usyk comes on his strongest in those rounds. So if we're going to see a case of any man getting hurt, I think in the mid-rounds, it's likely to be AJ. It's likely to be AJ in the mid-rounds. Alright? In the late rounds, I could really see it being either man. But in the mid-rounds, I would expect Oleksandr to be at his strongest and AJ to really look a bit lackluster in those rounds. It's something I've observed from AJ for the longest part. When a fight goes kind of into the mid-rounds, Dylan White and Brazil being the exceptions, he does tend to slow down a good bit. And to kind of, I don't want to say falter, no. But he definitely lets his opponent back in. If you'd see the Joseph Parker fight as a prime example, they were Parker's best rounds. Some of the rounds in the mid-rounds. Oleksandr Usyk, Anthony Joshua, it's a great fight. It really is a great fight. I have to give a prediction. I have to make a pick. Alright? I'm going to go with what I perceive to be safety first. I'm going with Anthony Joshua to win this fight on points. Wouldn't shock me if Usyk wins. Legit. Wouldn't shock me if Usyk stops him. Wouldn't shock me if AJ stops him. I just feel as though AJ is going to have the backing. He's going to have the backing of Eddie Hearn. He's going to have the backing of Sky. The judges are interested now, I have to say. You've got Howard Foster as one of the judges. At least it's not... what's the other guy's name? I've made videos about him, but I can't remember his name now. Terry O'Connor. At least it's not him. Howard Foster's not a great judge, but he'll be a bit more impartial than, say, a Terry O'Connor. Steve Weisfeld from America tends to favour aggressors. HBO used to have him in place of Harold Letterman, in 2013, 2014. His scorecards aren't terrible, but at times he does make you raise an eyebrow, and not even to the home fighter. Some of his scorecards are eyebrow raising. And of course, we have the Ukrainian judge, not going to try and pronounce him. You would imagine he would be probably a little bit more on the side of Oleksandr Usyk. Michael Alexander's the referee, very good referee, excellent referee, lets the action flow. He was the referee, and people had pictures of him going around on online at the time when he refereed Selby Warrington. He let that fight just fight out, covered in blood from Lee Selby's cuts. So, if the officiating is good, we're in for an interesting fight. I just think that politics will play a large factor in this, and I think that AJ Fury is the fight that is on people's minds, and I think that might influence them. And bear in mind the 60,000 fans we're going to have. Don't underestimate how that influences on judges as well. If you have Anthony Joshua and he lands a grazing shot on Usyk, but the crowd erupt, that maybe amplifies the punch in the judges' minds. You have to bear that in mind. I myself have seen it with AJ fights when he's in a stadium, and he might only land a grazing shot, or might not even land flush, or he might only throw one meaningful right hand that might hit the gloves, but the fans cheer. And you have a judge who's seeing it from behind. Say he can only see the rear of AJ, and he's hearing the crowd. Don't underestimate that. Don't underestimate it at all. Can I see Usyk winning? Definitely yes. Do I think he will win? It's hard to see him lose as a pro, but I just see AJ winning this fight on points. I see AJ winning this fight on points. I think AJ might be surprised by how durable Usyk is. I expect AJ to clock Usyk at some stage and Usyk to react quite well. Because this is a man who's been in there with big punchers like Myris Breedis. Myris Breedis is a big puncher. Make no mistake about it. Ask Manuel Char. Got knocked out cold. Got knocked out cold by Myris Breedis' uppercut. Go and ask, Morak Asik. Go ask Urnier Dorticos. Go and ask Kevin Johnson. Go and ask Deontay Wilder, because they sparred extensively for the Povetkin fight that never happened. How hard Morak Asiev hits. Hits pretty hard. Usyk was able to take some of his shots, took his right hand on the chin in the third round flush. No problem. So Usyk has a good chin. So I see this fight going late. It just kind of stems on how will the judges be. Will Usyk do enough to win rounds I say he'll do enough to win rounds, but to win them so clearly, they can't give him any other way. I could see a case where AJ legitimately wins this fight on points though, where there's no like robbery or anything like that. I think AJ's going to win. I think it's going to be a majority decision. I think we're going to see probably a scorecard of 115, 113 for AJ and a 116, 112 scorecard for AJ. There might be some debate as to whether that's legit or whether Usyk was hard done by. But I think AJ's going to win this fight on points. I hope you enjoy this analysis. I hope the points I make, make sense. There's other things about AJ as well. Like AJ still doesn't move from the bend from the waist as much. He doesn't move from the waist as much as I'd like to see him. Usyk might like that. He likes a stationary target or someone who's a bit upright, and he is still a bit upright. But saying that AJ, under Angel Fernandez, I liked what I've seen. The criticism I've had about McCracken is that he's not really improving anything in AJ. It's all kind of staying the same. With Fernandez in there, I'm seeing things in AJ that are a bit different. I like Fernandez in the team, and I hope they keep him. So my pick for this fight in the weekend, AJ win, points decision, probably majority. But there is some very, very interesting odds on Oleksandr Usyk round 7 to 12. I was on to Mark earlier, Unrivaled, and he was telling me that. So I would recommend maybe if you're fancying, chucking a tenner on Usyk round 7 to 12. It's looking interesting. Some good odds on that. So that's my thoughts on that. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you.